Hello, hello, hello. There's like one person that's awake. That's awesome. I mean, okay, we're getting late in the day. I get it, but you guys are almost there. You've made it all this way. Just a couple more talks. So I'm going to try this again. How you guys doing? Better. It's still like, you guys were like way up here this morning and now we're like way down here. That's usually the opposite on day 2. Everybody's hung over the second day. So a couple housekeeping things really quickly. First of all, you are in Ballroom C. This is the anything track. If that's not where you wanted to be, seriously, you've been here for a day and a half. How are you that confused still? Maybe that's where the alcohol went. I don't know. Second thing, do not stand in my fire exits. We get in trouble if you do that. So you're in or you're out. Just don't block the fire exits. We got plenty of seating for everybody. Come on in, sit on down. Finally, cell phones, turn them off or silence them or do whatever you have to do to make sure they don't make noise. Don't go browsing videos on Twitter or YouTube in the middle of this because your phone will make noise even if it's on silent. Make sure it's quiet. I wore boots for a reason. I don't want to have to stomp anybody. Fair enough? Cool. All right. So our next talk, we are talking all about the importance of having visibility into your IT assets. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Brian Berk.
How's everyone doing? Good. So this is IT asset inventory. Sometimes we go by AI, even though you guys might think of AI as something different. Wow, this is loud. Anyway, so today it's the afternoon session. I know we're all super excited to hear about asset inventory. It's not hacking. How many people in here are hackers? Like that's their full-time job. Anyone? No? That red team, blue team? Okay. How many people just do it on the side? Anyone do it just for fun? Yeah. Anyone do it because they don't like their neighbors? Yeah. It's all good when the neighbor has open Wi-Fi and yeah, their dog goes they're not good to you. Anyway, so like she said, if you guys have your phones are on silent, like I don't care. It's the end of the day. Use your phones. But she might not like it. She's bigger than I am. She'll hurt you. If you have to stand up and stretch, do it. This is not the most interesting stuff here. We'll try to make it interesting. We'll try to relate it as best we can to this hacking conference. Okay. What else? My background. So I've been, unlike the person before me, I've been in the IT industry longer than he's probably been alive. So I've worked with many different customers. I've been, started out and doing programming. I've done system admin. I've done security. I've done, all sorts of stuff. And I've worked with many different types of people. So I've worked with, the accounting clerks up to CEOs and everybody in between. And what I found out is that the people that I've worked with, they're not the brightest, right? That's what makes our job easy as hackers. It's easy to pretend you're someone you're not. You can walk into another company and pretend you're someone and have them sit down and log in for you. That's easy. Okay. Also, if you guys have any questions, you don't have to wait till the end. Feel free to raise your hand. It'll keep us a little bit more lively. Sorry, I don't have any beer to keep it more lively right now. So anyway, asset inventory, it's going to start with visibility. We want to see what's out there on our network, right? We sometimes see about it through the threats. We learn about these new assets that we have that we didn't know about through threats. The cloud security vulnerability program, our compliance. Maybe our compliance people are the ones that are showing us. The WannaCry virus that was out there, the hack that was out there years back. How many of those XP, anybody would get hit with it? Anyone want to cite to it? Someone? Okay, someone brave. But anyway, so those hit mostly XP in 2003 systems, right? How many of those were not known? If we knew about those systems ahead of time, could we have done anything about them? Maybe. Maybe we could have had the vendor update them. Maybe we could have shut them off ahead of time since they were so old. All right. Anyone in here allow just their general population at their companies to download anything they want on their company assets? There's got to be some brave people that are going to answer to that. So out of those who raise their hands, how many know exactly what's on your company assets? What software? Okay. What I've found is when you start allowing your users to download anything and everything, it's really tough to find that information. So once you start bringing in a program like your asset inventory, people are really shocked to see what's out there. So when you start bringing in one of these programs, to see what's out there is one thing. And then you got to find out who owns it. So here's an example. So I have a clerk over here. This person does accounting. So this coworker of mine, Wesley, does accounting, and they want to become an iOS developer. So on their side time, they download all these programs. Wesley was smart enough to do it in a kind of a cluster on his machine, so it's not really seen. Maybe our asset inventory didn't see that at the time. So what kind of freeware and shareware was downloaded on that machine? What kind of bad stuff is out there? If we don't know about it, then we can't do anything about it, right? So once we do find out about it, what's going to happen once it's found out? Maybe we found out from compliance and we get a fine from HIPAA or our SOX compliance or whatever we have. Maybe it's not that bad and we can just get rid of the stuff. Okay. ZDNet did a study and they found 30% of the DoD, all their software, they didn't know about. So that's a big hit. They can have, there's probably some people in here from there, but so I read this the other day, and 30% of the software, that's a big hit. Like if you don't know about all your different assets out there and all the pieces of software on it, and you get Microsoft says ante up, and may not have money for all that extra stuff. Okay, and then the other day they just came out and said they were going to change the ballistic missiles to not use those 8-inch discs. So most people in here probably, well, there's a good mix of people in here, a wide range of ages, but the 8-inch discs, I don't know how many people use them. That was even before my time. I used the 5 1/4, and it can store a little bit over a meg. So all right, so let's take that accounting clerk's computer again, right? So on that computer, maybe it's end-of-life software. Do we know about it? All right, so once we find that software on this machine, do we know who the owner is? The hardest part of any of this stuff is finding out who the owner is. You have to do a lot of homework, right? Does everyone know who owns every piece of software in the company? Probably not. But the one time you have to learn about who owns it, you wish you had that information. Okay. So a lot of times these things can hook up with your Active Directory, your HR resources. So if we can pull that information in from those different sources, that's what we want to do. We want to have it kept up to date. It's not a one-day activity where you just find this person over here and say, this user owns this piece of software. It's something that you have to keep up to date with. So it's not just leave it in the corner and let it run. You got to keep it care and feeding for it. Okay. The other thing this asset inventory can do for you is a lot of times we don't have budget for stuff. You find a new piece of software or a new tool, we don't have the budget for it, right? Perhaps we're spending a lot of money on this person's computer who's doing iOS development that really doesn't need it. With an asset inventory, we can scan it and see maybe we're paying too much for our licenses, for our Microsoft licenses or whatever. We can find out how much we are actually paying or how many we actually use. Okay. So today's environments are a lot different than in the past, right? We have stuff in the cloud. You got your Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud. A lot of stuff's up there. We have stuff on premise. You have your workstations, servers, everything on premise. You got mobile devices, IoT. You have your printers, your cameras, everything on the wire that hits. We need to know about everything. You guys need to know about it to make sure your environment's secure. You know, maybe our facilities people bought a new IoT camera. Great. You know, maybe they need it. But we want to make sure that that vendor is vetted. We want to make sure that they stay in business. Maybe they bought some cheap one from, you know, for $100 from Best Buy, and, you know, it does the job, but it's got a lot of vulnerabilities and there's some bad stuff in it. So we want to know about stuff out there so that your other teams can then do their jobs with it, right? So once we have that software, again, what are we going to do with it? We need to make sure all the teams talk and utilize this piece of the asset inventory. What about, for example, you know, I have my coworker Wesley, and he goes to his grandmother's house, and she's got an iPad, and maybe grandma looks a little different today. She's got a fuzzy tail and some sharp teeth, and, you know, a long snout. So grandma's not really great grandma. She now has jailbroken her mobile device, and it's got all sorts of spyware and crazy stuff. Is my coworker now going to be able to access all his corporate information on that device? Are we scanning that device? Do we know about it? Probably not, but should we? Maybe. I mean, we can't scan everything, but we should know about these devices and how people are getting into the network. No laughs at the shiny grandma, the big bad wolf. Come on. It's really tight here. All right, so how many people out here currently have a solution for asset inventory of some sort? Yeah, I mean, most of you should be raising your hand. How many of those people have multiple solutions of asset inventory? Right. So the problem that we see out there, you have so many different solutions. Maybe you have a CMDB that holds some information. You have an asset inventory. Maybe I have an old Access database that I have. Maybe they all have decent data in them, but they all need to kind of talk, right? We need to pick someone who's going to be the winner, and they all need to talk and share this information. If you want to keep that Access database out there, fine. But write some code, write some API code to share that data so that you can have it all in one central place. Okay? As well as keep it up to date, obviously. We want to make sure it's always up to date. All right, some of the type of sensors that you can have out there to find this data. So, so you can have physical scanners, the old school, actual pieces of hardware. Not too many places are using this anymore. It goes more towards the virtual scanners, which can be stored in the cloud or on-prem. So, cloud scanners, so at your companies or somewhere like on Amazon or somewhere else, it could be stored up there and looking down in. So that'll give you your north-south traffic as far as what information you can see. Agents, so we all have agents. Some people like them, some don't. You know, I've heard the term agent overload today and yesterday. So every vendor seems to have agents, and you can get too much out there. So some people like them, some don't. Passive scanners, so these will sit in line, and you can just scan everything on the wire. So whether a Xerox printer or something like that is you know, sending data through your network, we can then see it. That IP camera, we can see that. And the last one's API. So we have API connections. You're going to have API connections to your backend, to your CMDB, to Active Directory. Okay, so we can pick up that information if we're storing it in those. All right, so what we're finding also is is that we're getting so much volume. So let's say we have 1,000 assets at our company. From those 1,000 assets, this one machine has these different pieces of software on it. It has this much memory. We're seeing all this different data come in, and it's crazy the amount. So, and then you have, how it's coming in. So in this case, you see Skype. Skype was bought by Microsoft, or Communicator to Link. So we need to get that data normalized, right? We want to see it in a nice, clear, consistent page. So we want to see maybe all the stuff from Microsoft, or maybe it comes in as different levels of Microsoft. Anyone in here do certificate stuff and have to deal with, like Microsoft's one example of it, but everyone does it. So Microsoft has, I don't know how many different signing certificates that are from Microsoft, Microsoft, Inc., Microsoft, Inc., period. Same thing. We have to kind of normalize that and show, in this case, all the different stuff from Microsoft, all the different pieces of software. Do it on time. All right, so another pretty picture of like all the data coming in, and it's just fragmented. It's one ugly picture, and then our AI program needs to kind of clean it up. So here's some old data, an old slide from some of the raw data coming in. So in this case, you got a Sun system. It's running a Spark, and Hyperion is the piece of software. Oops. There we go. So anyway, here it is kind of normalized and made a little bit cleaner. So from the AI system, you can see a lot more from it. So, if we want to see everything that's Oracle owns, we can then see and then drill down and see what is Oracle owned. We can see what's, in this case, end of life. And then, get it to the team that needs to correct that. So if it is end of life, if it is end of life, then we want to make sure it's get to the right team to upgrade that server. And that's where we need to know the owner of it, right? If we don't know the owner of the server, we're kind of tossing our hands, and who here has shut down a server to see who yells? Does anybody yell if you shut down the server? If nobody yells, then fine, we're good. Let's keep it down. There's no problem. But if the users start yelling, then yeah, you got to get it up and running. So hopefully the company that you're working with has some updated servers, software that you can, get that server back up and to a more modern piece of hardware and software, so that you guys can't hack at it, right? And then just one example, in this case, ServiceNow. I don't work for ServiceNow, but here's a link so that your asset inventory, and you want them to be able to talk. If you're using ServiceNow, utilize that. And that's it. Any questions? Yeah. Say that again. So I was talking more like generic asset inventory, but in that case, it's two separate modules. Yep. I was trying to keep it as generic as possible. Right. Good question. So he asked if you should just rely on one tool, like if you have SCCM in your environment, should you just rely on that? So my answer is kind of it depends. So if you enjoy the data with SCCM and it provides everything you need, then yes, definitely just use that one tool. If you need to add up other stuff to it, if you can't do the owner to it, then you might need another tool in addition to that, and kind of, again, share that information. So API or something, or some sort of development tool where you can sync the two with whatever else you're using. Yeah. Yeah, again, I was trying to just do generic asset inventory, but in our case, it is, looking over at that, the cloud space. If you're using different asset inventory, you definitely want to, look at the cloud space, because working with customers, what they end up doing is, the two hands aren't talking, just like every customer. We have our cloud, and I didn't know we were using this much in the cloud, and I didn't know we had this many servers out here. So it's great if we can get a look into the cloud and see what our cloud team is doing ahead of time before we get some in the news, like unfortunately other customers. So he asked if security teams are the ones driving for asset inventory. I would say yes, because again, without having a good asset inventory, we don't know what we need to patch or what we need to fix out there. I think as security people, we want to see all of our stuff out there in the field, whether it's IoT or mobile devices, or we want to know about everything, so then we can put our tools on there to make sure that they're protected. Yeah. Say it one more time, sorry. Yeah. So the containers and the Docker containers. So yeah, just like anything in the cloud, we want to know about it, but if they're bringing in new containers like every hour, it's not necessarily something we need to scan or know about like exactly, but we need to know what they're doing. If it's more rigid and they're rolling out some cloud stuff and it's sitting there for a week, a month, obviously that stuff we want to make sure our tools are on to protect. Yep, good question. Anything else? Thanks for your time.